Well, top of the evening, everybody. Welcome to another new episode of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Café. I'm the Wandering Ukie, and I come to you with a whole bunch of new cafes, bars, restaurants when I'm exploring around the city of Montreal, and sometimes taking those travels and bringing new recipes at home to make either in my backyard or in my kitchen. So, one thing I've realized that I enjoyed a lot over the years is I do enjoy Indian food, but I didn't really show it off as much, nor have I really put it together at home. But I did correct that like last year when I did an episode at Villa Tandoori up in Mile End, and I showed off a lamb biryani for the first time on the channel. If you want to see that episode, you can just put a quick click on the link on the top right corner and then you can revisit that. But for the purposes of this video, it's something that was on my mind thinking, how can I make this at home? And seeing what I could see online, it's very straightforward. You will need to get a few special spices from some shops. Otherwise, there's a lot of ingredients that you probably already have at home. And you could do it with a whole bunch of ways. There's vegetarian, there's chicken, and there's a lamb variant. And for today, I'm going to be putting together the chicken style of a biryani, and we're going to do this from start to finish. And in case you're wondering, yeah, I am recording this on January the 11th, but I am coming off on Ukrainian Christmas weekend because it was just this last Wednesday, and this is going to be the last time I have the tree up until the next Christmas season, so I figured we could do all that in one go. But before we continue on, here is my suggestion for you. Click that subscribe button below and put the notification bell on, because that way, if there's a new video ready to view, you're going to get a pop-up on your phone. Plus, like this video and leave a comment if you want. The more likes I get, the more comments that are left, the more the videos promoted all across the algorithm on YouTube, so it does help me a little bit more than you realize. And actually, I'm just about to realize one more thing. I need a brew. And because it's going to be the last bit of the Christmas season for me, I got an appropriate one from the EXP or EXP. Oh, let's call it EXP Brewery. They've become one of my favorite breweries to find new stuff around, only because I look at the labeling, it's all based on video game art, pop culture from the past, and it feels like it speaks to a guy like me who was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, and was surrounded by video games up until my adult years. There was the Metroid one I did for Christmas, Halloween. I've done the random Mega Man one. This one is a good Christmas themed one called Xmas Bot, a New England IPA, and nice touch. As you can see here, the artwork is supposed to look like it's the robot Santa from Futurama, but unlike everyone's perception of a Santa Claus, this guy's anything but benevolent. In fact, if you see him outside, you're best to stay indoors. That actually takes place like maybe a century into the future. Don't quote me on that because I haven't watched a show in a while, but if you're a Simpsons fan, but you like their style of jokes, but also with a sci-fi twist, go for it. And you're going to see it's got a beautiful color that's typical of a New England IPA. So cheers everybody, happy Sunday as I'm recording this, and happy whatever you want to celebrate. Shiny metal ass. What do I look like, Bender? Regardless, let's get started. Now before we get on to the full meal, one thing we're going to need to be putting together is a little spice blend that's called garam masala. If you're anything like me, you probably wondered, what is that exactly? Because you would always associate Indian cooking with curry powder, which, as a little reminder, I use that a lot because I like to make my own batch over here. I'll put a card in the top right corner if you want to see how to do this on your own, but it's honestly one of my favorite seasonings to use. That and de Provence, they're the two that I use a lot in my cooking. But garam masala is also something else that is pretty common in these kinds of cuisines. I looked it up and apparently it's supposed to be a translation of hot spices, or like hot seasonings. But the truth is that there's nothing really in here that's going to be super hot. Maybe a little bit of pepper, but all the other flavoring there, like cumin, cinnamon, it's supposed to be warm flavors. I don't know exactly how that works, but even me with my sometimes fancy cooking, my palate isn't always able to spot like a warm seasoning. But with all due respect, we're gonna get started now. And in case you're looking at all this isn't just for the garam masala, it's a little bit more simple. I just thought I could bring all my spices out that I'm gonna need for later on. Now, the first big one you're gonna need is cumin. But just like with curry powder that I put together, cumin is the seasoning you're gonna be using a lot in this, because you're gonna need to put in, I would say approximately 1.5 tablespoons worth. And then once you're done with that, everything else is gonna be within the teaspoon range, so it's not gonna be as crazy. Here we go, 1 tablespoon. And 2 tablespoons. So there we go. You know, take note that I'm not using the jar because I use so much cumin when I'm mixing together my spice rubs, sharing with other members of the family, and figured for the price I pay for this is gonna get the job done. So move on from that. And then next thing I'm gonna be doing is, okay, don't need turmeric yet, even though I have pulled it out. Let's get my coriander here because that's gonna need about a good, like, teaspoon and a half. And once again, if you're looking at in the kitchen section, or if you're looking at herbs, coriander and cilantro are pretty much the exact same thing. I don't exactly know why those two things are used independently, but they're pretty much, well, you know what I mean. It's pretty much switched concurrently. It's like, it means the same thing. It does have a unique flavor, again, that not everyone is gonna like. Oh, here I am talking. I forgot that I need to put in 1.5 teaspoons, not just 1 teaspoon. There. Slightly above, and we're good to go with that. So we could put this aside. Almost lost. What I think I'll do is I'll just keep these spices to the side here so I know if I've already used them or not. So, cardamom. I feel like that for my cooking these days that I'm using cardamom a lot more and more. It's another one of those that it's pretty used frequently in my curry powder, but I'm trying to find new uses for it to think, is there a way that I can put it to, you know, make it a regular rotation for me? One thing I do like too is like in some teas, some coffees, they are going to use cardamom in it to give a different kind of flavoring. I would say also if you go to Café Chez Teta, they do have cardamom coffees, either warm or cold, depending on your preferences. And now that that's out of the way, ground black pepper. I mean, it's ground black pepper, pretty straightforward, and this is probably the only thing that's going to be giving this a kick. And that you're also going to need about 1.5 teaspoons. Okay, so that's 1/2 teaspoon here. Moving on to the full teaspoon. Just top it up a little bit because I didn't really have the full teaspoon. Perfect. Next is going to be cinnamon. And I only need 1 teaspoon worth of that. Funny thing is that I've had some cinnamon for a while, and honestly, I don't do too much baking, so that's not an herb spice that I would be putting to use as much. But I do find with some of these rubs, like for jerk chicken, for curry powder and such, it's actually been pretty useful there. So I've been able to make a dent in it, almost to the point that I finally need to get a refill of a cinnamon for myself in this jar. But luckily, I am gonna have enough in here for the second part when we get to the chicken. So next is cloves also. Speaking of jerk chicken, has a very unique scent, and I haven't really used it as much except for doing my jerk chicken seasoning. I know technically you need Scotch peppers to smoke your chicken in, but if you don't have Scotch peppers around, my dry rub for that is pretty straightforward and easy to do on your own. And once again, I'll put a card in the top right corner and you can see how I did that around Halloween. Oh, damn. Overflowed a little bit, but whatever. Feel like it's not going to be the worst thing to happen. Got that there. Maybe I don't need my garlic yet, but then there's going to be one final ingredient. Oh, courtesy of my sister, nutmeg. It's one of those things that nutmeg, when I think about it, I don't really think of using it for cooking, just for probably make in desserts, like if you're doing cookies. But I just figured, I had an extra spice jar. Let's get it filled up and see, maybe I could put it to use down the road and see how quickly I could go through it. And who knows, maybe I could refill a little bit more over time if I find it's useful enough in this cooking. Having a bit of a struggle with this. Dang. Okay, it's opened up, but I made a mistake for myself because I didn't even notice that for the cloves, I only needed a half teaspoon in here, so I ended up putting a teaspoon and a half by mistake. So I'm gonna make sure I don't do the same mistake with the nutmeg. Just half a teaspoon, put that in, and then once you have that, you pretty much got everything you need for the garam masala. You just have to give it a good shake in the jar, as usual. And then once you're done, there you go. It has a nice brown color to this. And let's see how this smells when it's all combined together. Interesting. Anyways, we have garam masala all put together now. And then we could just do a little bit of cleanup here, and then I could get started on the marinade for the chicken. So, next step is going to be preparing the marinade for your chicken over here. Now, usually if I'm going to be doing these marinades, I'm going to be using a mixing bowl, but I did see online that it's best to use one of these stock pots here because you are going to be cooking the chicken directly, so it kind of makes sense that you would basically just be putting it all in there and then letting it stew. So first thing I got for myself is just half a cup of water that I'm going to be including in here. I think I'm going to try to do all my wet ingredients here, and then I'll add all the other dry stuff later on. That's the first one. Oh yeah, something I don't use very often in my cooking is yogurt. Because I think I've done it before. Like, one of the main things I would be putting together growing up, like as a kid and even as an adult, was a breaded chicken breast, where you basically have a mixture of yogurt and Dijon mustard, and then you put some breadcrumbs on it, so it gives a lot of moisture, but then breads it up all at the same time. So how much am I going to need? 2/3 of a cup, I guess. That should be in between the half line and the 3/4 line. And you don't need to get anything too fancy, just regular plain yogurt, and then that's going to get the job done. It'll give a creamy texture. And I've been to some restaurants where you can get like the yogurt on the side as a dip as well for your chicken, but this should suffice for it all, to tell you the truth. I'm wondering if I'm gonna have, how much of this is gonna, okay, I think I'm slightly above 3/4 of a cup, but that's sufficient. This is a case where I'd rather have more in here than not enough. Because unlike with baking, you don't have to be very precise with your measurements. You can kind of give or take depending on your preferences, spice levels, nutmeg levels, and whatnot, like my mistake that I made with my cloves earlier. I'm sure it's still going to be tasty regardless, so I'm not too concerned about it. Then, once you're done, you can just keep aside this yogurt. I don't think I'm going to be using too much of this, but I can give it away in case anyone wants to make some smoothies. But that'll come later. Next, you need 2 tablespoons of a vegetable oil, something that's going to be very light. So I don't really use seed oils that much these days. Like, the only one is sesame oil if I'm doing a marinade for a tuna steak or if I'm doing a poke bowl. Canola oil will be the next best thing, I suppose, if you want a light coating, but if you're trying to avoid the seed oils, olive oil will be very similar to your canola oil. It doesn't have too much of a flavor, it's just very light, and the idea is just coating it up so that, well, prevents things from sticking together, or it's like a binding. So there we go. That's all taken care of, and I'm going to keep this aside for now and put my oil away. Then, after you're done with all that, you can get going on your dry ingredients. So next, I finally have the turmeric over here, and I'm going to be, how much does it say? 1/8 of a teaspoon? Seriously? I haven't looked at the kitchen store in a little while, so I don't know if they make 1/8 teaspoon measurements, but just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to do 1/4 of a teaspoon. I don't really have much choice for this, given I'm getting to the end of here. Turmeric is one of those herbs or spices I tend to use a lot in my cooking, or in this house we use a lot of it. And next they're going to say 2 teaspoons of freshly grated ginger. I don't know if I have too much left in my kitchen, so just to make it simple for me, I'm going to use ground ginger. I know it's not perfect, it's not going to be as juicy, but it will have the taste of ginger in here. So 2 teaspoons worth with a little overfill, and there you go. Just keep that aside here. After that will be a bit more cinnamon. And luckily this time I only need a 1/4 teaspoon as well. Just a very tiny amount compared to when I did the garam masala. Voila. After that, you're gonna get some kick with that. Cayenne pepper is gonna be used in this case as opposed to regular ground pepper. And that's how much again? 1/2 teaspoon worth. So a bit of a kick, but not too much of a kick. Ah! Well, I didn't expect that to happen. Okay, crisis averted. I just hope this is not going to be too spicy and then I end up with a couple of regrets. But I'm just going to move on, and I guess I'll get my 1/2 teaspoon once again, because I am going to need the cardamom once more. And this one's going to be like 1 teaspoon worth of it. Oh, actually it's a 1/2 teaspoon. I don't want to make that same mistake again. Voila. Keep this here. Coriander will be needed as well, so that's going to be another 2 teaspoons worth. And don't worry, there's a few other ingredients I'm going to need that I'm going to have to get and then mix up, and then soon we can move on to our chicken. Oh, wait a minute, that's a 1/2 teaspoon of coriander, so I'll need to do it 2 times here. 4 times actually. Man, my mental math is starting to be a little bad today. 3 and 4. Then you're going to need another bit of cumin in here, and once again it looks like the cumin is going to be the next big ingredient, because that you're going to need like 1 tablespoon worth. But because my tablespoon was dirty from the avocado oil, I'm going to use 2 1/2 teaspoons to add it all up. There, so 1 done. Then I am going to need to get a little bit of paprika there. Oop. I seem to have forgotten that, so we'll be right back. Yep, I fetched my paprika, but at the same time I was able to get my cutting board here, because I remember too I would need about 6 cloves of garlic to be able to put into this entire marinade. I've got 7 here because I figured some of these are kind of small, and it gives a bonus one so I can, and pay tribute to my Ukrainian roots. Garlic and us, like I always say, it goes hand in hand with everything. So I'm probably going to be adding this in, then the paprika, then a little bit of salt is going to be required, and then after all that I can mix it up. And then the thing too is that once this is mixed up, you can throw your chicken directly in here. Well, I guess it's a good reason for having an extra clove of garlic is sometimes you never know if one's going to be rotten or not, and just want to be able to cut off the rotten part or have a backup so you're not left with not enough. So it's all sliced up and minced, added into the pot, and then I can finally add the last few ingredients in here. Salt, and it says it asks for a very weird amount, like 1 3/4 teaspoon worth. I don't think I've ever come across anybody saying that you got to use that amount, but what do I know with cooking? Now, there we go. That's the tablespoon. Yeah, it's a 1/2 tablespoon. because I realized I went through all the trouble to get my paprika, and it would be kind of a shame if I didn't use that in here. And right now I'm looking at this, and the combination is actually giving a really nice color, like a lot of brown, slight hint of red, and it's gonna get even more red once I have all the paprika in here. So there we go, 1 tablespoon, and 2. I am pretty stoked to try this now. It's the first time doing a real Indian cooking in here, not counting butter chicken that was done with a pre-made pack and then just mixed it up. Anyways, now that I got that out of the way, let's get the 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Ah, there we go. So we got the 1/2 teaspoon here. Got the 1/4 here. And then lastly, the full teaspoon. And there we go, that's all the salt. But there is still one more step here to be able to get it all complete. And that's gonna be 2 teaspoons of the garam masala that I just put together here. This will give it the added flavor in addition to everything else. So yeah, I'm kind of duplicating some of the spices in here, but apparently if you use those spice mixes, you know, what can you do? There we go. So what I'll do now is I'm just gonna do a little bit of a cleanup here, and then once I'm done, we can get going on mixing this and then adding the chicken. Now that we have everything in here, it's gonna be time to mix it all together. So I'm just gonna take the same spoon I used to scoop out the yogurt and just combine all the ingredients and stir it up. So it's gonna be like a brown red paste once it's all put together. So then this will thicken it up. It's gonna become creamy. It's gonna be a great way to marinate the chicken once that's all prepared. As you can see here, and there you have it. It's all mixed up. Now that we got that out of the way, it's time to use our chicken. So you want a juicy piece of meat, which is why you should probably have a piece of chicken that still has the bone on it. It could be some breast, it could be legs, because I've had it once with a leg in it, but for my purposes, I'm just gonna use some chicken thigh, because chicken thigh is my favorite cut of the chicken to get, and I always stick with it just for that same reason. So what you gotta do too, is you just have to cut these in half so that one piece is still gonna have the bone on it. So you put this into smaller pieces, and I guess that's gonna make it a little easier for cooking. There, almost there. Just got some skin to cut through. All right, almost there. All right, one piece down. So I'm just gonna throw it in the pot. And again, one is gonna have the bone, the other is not. Oh yeah, you're probably gonna need like a good 1.5 pounds of chicken if you're gonna be doing this kind of recipe. And then you just keep repeating for all your other thighs, and then you just let this sit in the fridge afterwards. And there we go, that's the last of the chicken all cut up. So I'm just gonna line this up in here, and then I'm just gonna give it a good mixing so that everything is well coated. So it's going to be hard to see on camera, but essentially it's going to be looking like this. It does almost kind of look like butter chicken based on the yogurt, so what can you do? Now you just keep this aside in the fridge so it can marinate for however much you need. It could be a couple of minutes, like 30 minutes. You could even do it overnight. Obviously, if I want to get this cooked in time for supper tonight, I'm going to have to leave it a little bit shorter than I would need to have to. So I'll put that away, clean up this hand so that I don't get the salmonella on myself, and then we're gonna get to our next step, which is gonna be the rice. Oh. You know, sometimes you gotta reread the instructions to make sure you're not gonna be in a world of hurt. I'm so used to doing like 3 cups of rice with like 3 cups of water, but this one says that I should be using 3 liters of water, which is kind of crazy for me given the fact that I don't have a second stock pot with that size in there. But what I'll do is I'll just do 2 liters of water and then see how much rice I could do in that case. It might be about a good, like how much are they saying? 2 1/4 cups of rice, and with that amount of water, along with the seasonings in there. I guess I'll wait and see what it's gonna be. It does say that I should use about 2 tablespoons of salt, which seems like a lot because I always think that trying to have too much salt there's gonna be a bad thing, but apparently according to the instructions, then it's just gonna, the salt is gonna evaporate. It's not gonna be as salty after a certain point. I'll make a judgment call if I wanna do that then. But other things I'm gonna be using, well, not this. I'll be using cardamom again, but cardamom pods. I'm gonna need about a good 10 of them to put into here. And then 1 star of anise. I feel like this is gonna give it a very licoricey flavor, but we'll see how that turns out. And Bailey's, well, I'm not gonna be needing that. Oh wait, I need 6 pods. Bailey's I don't really use as much in my cooking, so I could probably avoid it and I'll still get some decent flavoring. Then 10 cloves are gonna be added in here. So then the idea is I'm gonna let this come to a boil, throw the rice in, throw the seasoning in, let it come to a boil, and then cut the heat, let it cook for maybe about 5 minutes more. You could put it aside. Apparently you could even, why am I losing my words right now? Apparently you could even drain that, keep it aside, and then mix up with the rest of the stuff. You know what? I'm gonna make a judgment call with this. I'm just gonna do 2 cups of rice, but I'm not gonna be doing it with this way, with the liter system, because that feels like it's gonna be a lot, personally speaking. So I'll just readjust it and maybe let it cook longer with the seasoning so that these things can soften up and I don't have to worry about too much waste and drain. I am getting kind of hungry after all.
Your love, you got that hold over me. Long as I got your love, you know that I'll never leave. When I wanted you to share my life, I had no doubt in my mind. And it's been you, woman, right down the line.
And here we are. Basmati rice is all set to go. So unlike the recipe that I found online that said to use 3 liters of water, drain, make it complicated, I decided to just go with the way I know how to do basmati best. Cook it for 20 minutes. 2 cups of rice would give you about 3 cups of water. Put all the seasonings there and then you can just mix all together and it's gonna be relatively dry afterwards. That's the way you're supposed to do your rice. Instructions I've seen before with basmati was 2 cups of water with 1 cup of rice. But I always found that 1.5 cup of water gives a better consistency and makes it more sticky. And you may have noticed I put together a little bowl over here. This was just a bit of saffron, like 1 teaspoon of it, along with 2 tablespoons of warm water. You're gonna be drizzling that once you have the rice in the dish at the same time. I know, if you know a thing or two about saffron, the real stuff is not that cheap at all. So what I have over here is just safflower, or as they say in French, American saffron. But I feel like that's gonna get the job done for what I need to do. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, if I put it in here and combine all the flavors, then it's not gonna matter too much. But what will matter is, I seem to need another beer to get my cooking done. I have it all rinsed out, and I have a little special one that I found along the way. I figured I could probably highlight because I didn't think I would be able to find this at my local IJ near my house, because I'm kind of surprised with the reach of it. Bogard, they're like a distillery, brewery that I'm kind of familiar with, apparently located up on Danderand Street in Rosemont, which yeah, Rosemonde's a part of my history, so I don't have to go too far into that. But it's an interesting one called 13e Lune, or that's French for 13th moon. It's a double white Belgian beer, and it's about 7.1%. So double means it's like 7 to 8% for a volume, so it's a bit strong. But the reason I picked this up is because I did have this once earlier in the year, or actually it was like maybe end of last year, because I have to remember that a month ago was still 2025. But it was a collaboration I did with Le Vestiaire. It's one of the many places I like to visit along Plaza Saint-Hubert. And if you want to see me visit them, then I'll put a card in the top right corner. You can see when I went to go get their poutine cheese, mac and cheese on my, what I call my 40-year walk. Thinking about when I was turning 40. But yeah, it's a collaboration I did between the two of them. The 13 is supposed to be for the fact that it's celebrating their 13th anniversary, which is crazy for me because I never thought that it was around for that long. But to tell you the truth, Plaza Saint-Hubert I haven't really explored as much until the last probably almost 4 years, ever since I've been coming back into Montreal and trying to explore all the boroughs of Montreal. So it's still a brand new territory for me in the grand scheme of things. So unlike the other beer that I had, it's not unfiltered, it's not cloudy, it's a little bit more transparent, but it looks like it's going to be a solid one while I get to the next step. Nice. Tastes like a white beer. Belgian style white beers are going to have wheat as opposed to barley, coriander, orange peel, so that gives it all a bit of a distinct flavor. And it's just perfect for me. So now, the next step I'm going to do is, it's going to be the time to get this thing on medium heat, get the chicken cooked. I'm going to have to cook it for like 5 minutes on each side with the lid on it, flip it around, and then eventually what I'm going to do is add the rice into that. And then this saffron is going to be splashed at random here, cooked all together, and then it's going to give it like a nice red look to it. Going to be kind of a, well, distinct flavoring, probably not too spicy, but I am looking forward to it. Recipes I've seen online would also say that you could put fresh coriander, which I bought, and I'm going to cut like maybe the equivalent of 1 full cup of it and throw it in there when it's time. There is also fried onions you could put in there, but I didn't have time and didn't feel like putting that in. Plus I thought 1 cup of oil with 2 onions, that's a lot of oil all at once for that. It's like deep frying it. Deep fry is not something I really do very often. Okay, heat is off right now, so I'm just gonna remove this, keep it aside in the meantime. So it's been mostly browned up on both sides. I don't know how far deep the chicken's been cooked, but this is only halfway done because there is gonna be another step involved. Next thing I'm gonna have to do is, I'm gonna have to recook this thing. Well, first, make sure that the skin side of the chicken is gonna be facing at the bottom of the pan so that it's gonna be nice, sticky, and well browned. I'm gonna throw the cup of coriander I put in here. I'm making a judgment call. I'm not putting half. I'm just going to put the whole thing in. Then I'm going to throw the rice in with all the spices. And then finally, I'm going to be throwing in the saffron water. But I'm just going to splash it in very random intervals, so it's going to be all over the place. That's going to be another 25 minutes to cook. Like basically, I would just put it into medium heat, let it get steam, and then set it for another 25 minutes. So then once all is said and done, we'll be able to have a nice meal very soon. Maybe I should have some other stuff to eat because I am getting hungry and it's going to take some time and I got to fill myself up. We're going to be on the home stretch very soon. 25 minutes is all up, and now it's time to serve this thing. So apparently they would say that you should get a scoop of the rice with a combination of the yellow from the curry, the saffron, the ghee, and white rice. It's all combined together, and get a good piece of the meat from the bottom. And typically if you go to a restaurant, you would have this all scooped up, put into a bowl, which is then turned onto a plate to give it a nice, perfect round feel. But I'm not in the mood to do that now because, like I said, I'm hungry, it's getting kind of late, and I'm going to try to do the best I can with this. Ooh, ow, hot. Ooh, I'm definitely digging what I have over here because it's a really good seasoning. The only thing I'm missing is like maybe a little bit of the meat. Like I need a little extra chicken here before this could feel like a good meal. Oh, here we go. One piece here, throw that on. Maybe one more for good luck. I feel like most of this stuck to the bottom too, so I'm probably gonna have a bit of cleanup to do afterwards. But you know, 25 minutes, plus all the time it took for the chicken to do this, and voila. So what do we have here, everybody? We have, well, let me just get a good shot. There we go, I got my thumbnail too. Chicken biryani for the first time on camera, homemade, my very first Indian cuisine on the Wandering Ukie Cheese Café. So let's give it a taste test. All right. So once again, in case you just jumped into the video now, which I would have a couple of questions, but whatever, we just did a chicken biryani for the first time on camera. Something I enjoy getting in Indian restaurants with a nice combination of spices, herbs, basmati rice, and especially some chicken. Now, chicken's been cooking for quite a while now, and I'm gonna give a taste test to see what this is all like. Very tender. It's one of the reasons why I like to have the dark meat on the chicken thigh, because it can be very juicy, very, well, it's like the brown meat usually has the juiciest parts of it. It's a pretty good combination of flavors also with the rice. Obviously it's not going to be the same as when I get it in a restaurant, but for homemade purposes, and especially for the first time for someone who hasn't done it before, it serves its purpose. And it's going to fill me up very well. And yeah, pretty satisfied, and I'm glad I got to try something brand new. So I'll just enjoy finishing the rest of this since I am getting kind of hungry, but I am going to tell you, thanks for watching this latest edition of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Café. So if you like what you see, you know what to do. That's right, hit that subscribe button below, give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my wanders, the stories I tell, the recipes I do at home, and everything that comes with these episodes. And if you have any ideas for future videos, leave in the comments. I'll see what I can do one of these days. Until then, take care, see you next time, and above all else, enjoy the ride.